Knows pros. Bonus points calculated before taxes and fees after applicable discounts, if any. Valid 9/18 through 9/29, subject to change. DeWalt offer valid through 10/11.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
I'm a bad man.
The Rams played Cincinnati tough last night, but lost by 3. Rams coach Sean McVay has a lot of work to do with his offense. The Rams made only 1 of 11 third down conversions and didn't score a touchdown until a minute left in the game. Quarterback Matthew Stafford was sacked 6 times and threw 2 interceptions. An arrest warrant has been issued for Chargers cornerback J.C. Jackson. Police in North Attleboro, Massachusetts, said Jackson missed a deadline on Friday to pay a $600 speeding ticket and complete a 4-hour class on reckless driving. Jackson got a ticket in 2021 for driving 100 miles an hour when he was with the New England Patriots. If I was Chargers coach Brandon Staley, I would order Jackson to go back to Massachusetts and take care of both of those obligations before he's allowed to play again. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
On Monday, October 9th, don't miss the KBLA Talk 1580 exclusive. The tape. 1 year later.
Y'all were coming for us.
Yeah, but Tavis, that's not in my heart. I wasn't coming for anyone like that. I apologize, but that was not me. That's not in my heart. And like I said a few moments ago, I have a solid, demonstrable record of shared power that's real and concrete. That can't be misinterpreted.
Join Tavis Smiley and an all-star panel of political insiders, influencers, and journalists for a look back at the crisis that shook LA City Hall when 4 Latino leaders were caught on tape making racist, demeaning, and derogatory statements about black people and other fellow citizens on Monday, October 9th, exclusively on KBLA Talk 1580. The tape, 1 year later. We'll broadcast live an afternoon drive from 5 to 7 p.m. with an immediate encore presentation from 7 to 9 p.m. When all was said and done, was more said than done. 1 year later, are there fractures in LA's black-brown political partnership? And where do we go from here? Don't miss The Tape, 1 year later. Only on KBLA Talk 1580, Monday, October 9th, live from 5 to 7 p.m. with an immediate encore presentation from 7 to 9 p.m. We've got a lot to talk about.
1, 2, 3, go! I'm gonna try to keep it coming. Things ain't always smooth, oh wait. But I'll be alright, as long as I can find the groove. Yes, I will. Somehow I know that I can make it. You seem to like my style. Don't you worry, I'm gonna be around a while. Yes, I will. I'm just happy to see you talk to me back in style again.
Live from historic Lamert Park in Los Angeles, California. I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit TheTavisSmileyShow.com. That's TheTavisSmileyShow.com, or wherever you get your podcast, and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, hip-hop and America are changing, but not for the better. So says Kevin Powell in a provocative essay written for Politico. I teed this up last week that Kevin would be here today. This piece has caused quite a stir. They've been going in on Kevin. Quite a stir online, and I look forward to what should be a spirited conversation in hour 2 about hip-hop and America changing, but not for the better. And we will get Kevin Powell's critique of hip-hop 50 years in our second hour. In our third hour, 2 conversations. Up first, Vanity Fair writer Morgan Jenkins explores why black audiences, listen to this now, why black folks seem to love Italian icons on screen. Why do we love Italians on screen? Think Al Pacino in Scarface, Sylvester Stallone in Rocky, or the all-star cast in the Godfather trilogy. You'll recall President Barack Obama said, and they said on more than one occasion, his favorite movie ever, series ever, is The Godfather. What is it with black folk and Italians? What's the fascination all about? We'll talk about it at the top of hour 3 with Vanity Fair writer Morgan Jenkins. On the B side of hour 3.
Well, I've been patient for a long time, and I finally got up the courage to do what I wanted to do. So I'm putting this forward to y'all. It's a whole new side of me. Some of y'all might not understand where I'm coming from, but I think once you sit back and you listen, you know exactly where I'm coming from.
It's a conversation with celebrated drummer Gregory Hutchinson about his debut solo album, Da Bang. After years of playing behind some amazing artists like Wynton Marsalis, Diana Krall, Harry Connick Jr., and Joshua Redman, drummer Gregory Hutchinson is now finally out on his own, a debut solo album called Da Bang. And we'll talk to Gregory Hutchinson on the backside of hour 3. President Joe Biden is making history today, walking the picket line in Detroit with striking UAW workers. And so let's commence today's show talking politics with our regular contributor, Ruben Navarrete Jr., the most widely read Latino columnist in the nation, courtesy of his Washington Post Syndicate column, and the host of the very popular Ruben in the Center podcast. Ruben Navarrete Jr., how are you today, sir?
My brother, good to be with you again, as always.
It's good to have you on. Thank you for the time. Glad we have an hour, a whole lot to talk about. Let me see if we can move through this hour as swiftly as we can and cover as many trending political topics as possible. I start with the obvious. Joe Biden in Detroit today, walking the picket line with UAW strikers. Your thoughts?
So Joe Biden has had a long history, his 50 years in politics, of being pro-union. He talks about his roots in Scranton, Pennsylvania. He is Lunch Bucket Joe. One of the reasons that Barack Obama chose him to be his running mate in 2008 was because Joe Biden is fluent in the language of working-class whites, particularly from an area of the country called the Rust Belt, which is these 4 states of Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. So it's not surprising that he's going to side with the workers at the UAW strike. What surprised me is that Donald Trump beat him to the punch. That Donald Trump actually announced he was going to go meet with the workers before Joe Biden did. And that's significant because Donald Trump is not Democrats' favorite kind of Republican to run against. They love running against Mitt Romney. People like Mitt Romney, rich Harvard guy, goes around talking about how corporations are people too, right? That's who Democrats like to run against. But Trump has this appeal. I don't understand it, but it's undeniable, this appeal to working class whites. And here's the headline. The Trump voter and the Biden voter, it's the same guy. If you are a white male living in one of those 4 states I mentioned, you voted for Democrats most of your life. Then here comes Trump in 2016. You jump ship and vote for him, not for Hillary. But then you abandon him in 2020 to vote for Biden. At least some of them do. And now they're pretty much up for grabs, which is why the UAW has not endorsed anybody in this race yet.
That's true.
They want everybody to know they have not given Joe Biden their endorsement. They want to see what Joe Biden's going to do for them. Biden and Trump have the same policies when it comes to trade with China, tariffs. All these things I think are terrible policies that make us less competitive in the long run. Trump and Biden are one and the same.
What's your well? Let me pause for a second. When we come forward, I'll jump right to this. I want to unpack this reality that you put your finger on. That at the moment, the UAW has not endorsed Joe Biden, and that's raising a lot of eyebrows in the White House. I've talked to a few people, and they're not at all happy about that. And I don't know to what extent the fact that they've not endorsed him as yet has factored into his going to Detroit today to walk the picket line with these striking auto workers. But the White House is not happy about the fact that UAW has not endorsed Joe Biden as yet. That I can assure you. We'll talk about that and a great deal more as we move through this first hour talking politics with Ruben Navarrete Jr. on Tavis Smiley.
Seeking the truth. Speaking the truth. This is the Tavis Smiley Show.
Escalade IQ. This the intro to the all-electric Cadillac, perfected like Zoom. And on a full charge, you get 450 miles without the stop. Haiku. This is what I do. Daddy fat intellect since 92. Linked all the way back, panoramic roof. Coming 24-inch rim standard. Ooh, why? Shawty don't kill him. Cadillac diamond in the back, cold chillin'. And when I'm on attack, on the track is no ceiling. Sky's the limit. You hear me? You hear me? Straight drop, no parachutes. Lay lines like a longitude and latitude. Feel it, beloved, clearly we're hustling. Bustin', truckin'. Cadillac, Cadillac, Cadillac.
For more on the Escalade IQ, visit Cadillac.com.
Available late 2024. GM estimate 450-mile range. On a full charge based on development testing and/or analytical projection. Consistent with SCHA 1634 revision 2017 MCT. Range subject to change prior to production. Annual rates may vary based on service factors, including ambience temperature, terrain, battery age, and condition loading, and how you use and maintain your vehicle.
Applications are now being accepted for the City of Los Angeles Emergency Renters Assistance Program. The program provides up to 6 months of rental arrears to low-income residential renters who are at risk of homelessness due to unpaid rent as a result of COVID-19 or other financial hardship. Applications will not be accepted after 6 p.m. on October 2nd, 2023. Go online 24/7 at housing.lacity.org or call 888-379-3150 from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday and see if you qualify. Apply today.
Girl, I have a secret. When I get stressed out, I get sweaty. That's why I use Secret Clinical Antiperspirant. It's like my own secret weapon. For 72 hours, I get Secret's strongest protection against sweat caused by stress, heat, and activity, because you know how crazy life can get. Plus, it's made with advanced odor fighters that don't just cover up smelliness. They help prevent it from happening in the first place. Believe me, if I weren't wearing Secret, I'd be a hot, smelly mess. Thankfully, Secret works.
Sometimes we lose, sometimes we win. Sometimes we try to fit it all in. Sometimes we don't know what's in store. Sometimes we find what we're looking for. Sometimes we're rolling easy and free. Sometimes 1 and 1 makes 3. So much to love along this ride. That's why Nationwide is on your side.
Nationwide Mutual Insurance Company and Affiliates, Columbus, Ohio.
I was crossing the street when I met the love of my life. I chased after her. Nothing would stand in my way. Not the dog walker, nor the hot dog vendor. Finally reaching her, I asked, "What do you call that amazing smell?"
It's Gain Flings.
Gain Flings. My love had a name, but more importantly, it had a scent.
Fall in love with Gain Flings. Seriously good scent. Gain Flings with 50% more freshness ingredients versus leading bargain detergent.
Smart talk for curious people just like you. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Indeed you are, and we're glad about it. Our guest in this first hour is Ruben Navarrete Jr., really no guest, a regular contributor to this program. And for those who are, just hearing Ruben perhaps for the first time, as we continue to expand our syndication across the country, there are many who may be hearing his voice for the very first time. You should know that Ruben and I go back 30 years, and he is far more conservative than I am. And every now and then, even though I am unapologetically progressive, I like checking in with conservative voices. And Ruben and I, again, go back way back. We used to do a radio show together, as a matter of fact, a black and brown radio program. I'm the black guy, by the way. He's the brown guy, and he's the more conservative one. I'm the more progressive one. But I enjoy these dialogues from time to time as we get a chance to take each other's temperature on the issues of the day. So for those, again, who may be hearing him for the very first time across the nation, that's a bit of the backstory about Ruben Navarrete. Harvard educated, as I mentioned earlier, the most widely read Latino columnist in the nation, courtesy of his columns every week syndicated by the Washington Post. He's a big deal, and we love to fight. That said, Ruben, what's fascinating about this UAW situation, specifically that they have withheld, at least up until this moment, their endorsement of Joe Biden. Who knows what happens on the other side of his walking the picket line with them in Detroit. But here's the question. Why is it that a guy who regards himself and ours reminds us that he is the best friend that Labor's ever had in the White House? That's his line, right? I'm the best friend Labor's ever had. If he's really that, let me reframe this. If Labor is really that enamored with him, if they really love him that much, why is Joe Biden having to court auto workers?
So I'm approaching my 35th anniversary of writing for money, and I've been writing about politics that long. With politicians, you have to forget what they say and watch what they do. And you see that with African-American, Latino, young people's support for Joe Biden has all fallen. It's all dropped off. And likewise, with regard to labor, they say that Joe Biden says all the right things. But in terms of his time in office, they have a long list of grievances in times where he hasn't been there for them and actually supported them and put pen to paper on their behalf. So they really want to see more action and less words. You know, their response is, what have you done for me lately? Yeah, we know Joe Biden has been in the corner of organized labor for 50 years. I think nobody can deny that. But everybody who gives an endorsement, including black folks and brown folks, they have the right to say, you know, what are you going to do for me? What exactly are you doing for me now? And not just have them rest on their laurels.
Yeah. And yet, that notwithstanding, it's still fascinating to me that he has to court these auto workers, given his track record. And maybe Sean Fain is outsmarting everybody because he's certainly leveraging this moment. The fact that he has pulled off this historic moment where Joe Biden is walking the picket line in Detroit, that's a big deal. And Sean Fain, the head of UAW, has used this leverage quite nicely. And yet I can't imagine that UAW would ever endorse Donald Trump. So, again, Sean Fain has got to be given some props and some respect. You got to give this guy some credibility and some credit, I should say, for being able to manipulate this moment to his advantage and get the president to walk the picket line with him. I guess the question is whether or not, as smooth and as good as Sean Fain appears to be at the moment, you can't imagine UAW endorsing Donald Trump, can you?
No, but I can very much envision the UAW sitting it out, taking a neutral position and not endorsing either Biden or Trump if those two square off. And in fact, they'll have a lot of cover because if you end up with a Biden-Trump rematch, you're going to see all these polls, Tavis, that show 50, 60, 70% of Americans disgusted that we're back here again. And the UAW will be able to say, hey, we're with the majority of Americans. We think we can do better, and we don't have a horse in this race. We're going to stay neutral. And here's why, because, again, Donald Trump's voter and Joe Biden's voter, they're the same voter. In the Rust Belt states, the people where they make these cars, those are people who have voted for Trump one minute and Biden the next, and they're totally up for grabs. If anything, Joe Biden should thank, or Sean Fain should thank Donald Trump, because it was, again, Trump making the overture saying, it's an extraordinary thing for the Republican to say, I'm going to speak to the UAW workers. Now, he's going to go there and praise them, right? I mean, what planet are we on? This proves that Donald Trump has always been a Democrat. He's a demagogue for sure. He's out for Trump, only for Trump. But he was giving money to Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer long before he was giving money to Republicans. And so he's now going back to his roots with these working class whites who love him, who normally vote Democrat except they vote for Trump. So if Trump were not going, and the Republican Party only had people like Tim Scott, who said that he would fire all these workers, or Nikki Haley, who calls herself a union buster, well, then in that case, Joe Biden would not be going to Michigan. Joe Biden's going to Michigan because he's afraid of Trump's appeal to these workers. It's
a fascinating frame. I wonder how right Ruben is that Joe Biden's only going to Michigan now, doing something historic because Donald Trump said he'd go first. We'll never know, I guess, but it's something interesting to consider. Again, I don't think we agree on this point, Ruben. I don't think we agree on this, which is that. Your point that UAW is going to sit this out. I can't see that. I can't see. I hear the argument, but I can't imagine UAW sitting this out. It's too important a race. And your points make sense to me on some level, but I can't. I just don't see it. I don't see a UAW sitting this thing out. I think they're going to get what they want out of Joe Biden today, and I think at the appropriate time they're going to endorse Joe Biden, and the White House will finally stop sweating. And I believe that in part because Trump has always been a friend, obviously, as a member of this club. He's a friend of big business. He has never, ever, 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 you all recall the stories, the horror stories that we learned about Donald Trump and the way he treats his workers, the way he doesn't pay his bills, et cetera, et cetera. Donald Trump has never been a friend of workers. And I can't imagine UAW is stuck on stupid to not realize that. So, again, give Sean Fain credit for leveraging what he has. forcing the president's hand, making him historically walk a picket line with them today in Detroit. But I think when all said and done, UAW endorses Joe Biden. We will see if I'm right or if Ruben is right in the coming weeks and months. Let me move on to some other issues. A lot to cover, as I said, in this hour, trending political stories. This is breaking news today. Ruben, Cory Booker, the junior senator, African-American, of course, out of New Jersey, has publicly stated today that he would like to see Robert Menendez resign. Now, here's why this is a big deal. It's a big deal because there's a growing number of Democrats who are afraid as they run for re-election, as they are on the ballot, they're going to be tainted by this indictment, 6 or 7 years after the first one. He survived the first one with a hung jury. But they've indicted Robert Menendez, the senior senator from New Jersey, obviously Hispanic, Cuban to be exact. So you got black and brown, and that's the only state that I'm aware of right now, unless I'm missing something, the only state where there's a black and brown senator representing the state. So you got Cory and you got Robert Menendez. So it's a big deal to have black and brown representing this state, New Jersey, in the Senate. But the black guy has now come out against the brown guy and told the brown guy, you need to resign, you need to go home. And Cory Booker's voice resonates. It means something. How are you reading the drama that Menendez is facing and the news today that Cory Booker says he ought to step down?
Well, first of all, having a flashback to conversations you and I have long had where there's an African-American who's being prosecuted, some would say persecuted by a U.S. attorney or a Latino in the same spot. And you typically, my friend, have typically come down in terms of favor of due process and really giving an airing to this idea that many times African-American elected officials are targeted by prosecutors. I am not like that. I will take my folks and throw them under the bus in a hot minute. I have a long history. You can Google it. You can Google it, folks. You know, I do not owe anything to people like Bob Menendez, this Cuban-American who doesn't give me or people like me a thought and hasn't, despite the fact that he's a Democrat, you know, he's always been bought and paid for by special interests, to my mind, including organized labor. And he's taken many positions that go contrary to the best interests of Latinos. He breathes rarefied air, as does Cory Booker, because they're members of the Senate. And so, yeah, I'm not going to always stand by Latinos. I have a very poor record, in fact, of standing by Latinos who get into trouble. I tend to be the first one to offer them up. But having said that, I'm going back and forth between whether or not he should resign or not.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's significant for the party, and if he cares about the party and he cares about New Jersey and that seat staying in Democratic hands, then he should resign. But this idea of innocent until proven guilty, he actually thinks he doesn't need to resign. It really is up to the voters to decide whether he should step down or not. Until I see some polling from New Jersey that actually tell me what the voters think, then I'm gonna say he can go either way. I mean, he really, you know, does have a foot to stand on when he says, I haven't been convicted of anything.
Mm-hmm.
Why should I step aside? But having said that, if you look at the case itself, Tavis, here's the problem. People need to take responsibility for their actions. This is how Ruben got to the center. Ruben got to the center because both political parties, and this is where you and I disagree, both political parties are full of crap. Okay? The Democratic Party is equally full of crap as the Republican Party. On the Republican side, you have Donald Trump, who sees himself as a victim. Donald Trump didn't do anything wrong ever. He's always being persecuted by the media and his political enemies, right? Now you have Menendez. Menendez comes forward and says, I didn't do anything. I'm being persecuted, he says, because I'm Latino. That's what he said. I'm Latino, and they're going after me because I'm Latino. And then he said yesterday, sure, I have a habit of stockpiling cash in my house and shoving it into the pockets of my congressional blazer. You know why? Because my parents were Cuban, and when they lived in Cuba, they were afraid that Fidel Castro was going to come knock down the door and take away their money and their home and their business. So he's blaming the fact that he's Latino, he's blaming his parents, and it's just low rent. It's just disgusting that he does this, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And it's, you know the familiar phrase, it's not the crime, it's the cover-up. But what's
Sure.
worse than the cover-up is playing the victim.
Mm.
When you, and I'm saying this, if you're black, brown, white, or purple, and you play the victim and you don't want to own your stuff, okay, then I got no time for you.
Mm. No, it's a credible argument. I would retort with this very, very quickly and very simply. Number one, I do believe that Democrats have taken black folk and brown folk, for that matter, for granted far too long.
Yep.
I believe that Republicans tend to ignore, certainly African Americans. They don't ignore your community. They ignore us. They ignore black folk. Democrats take it for granted. So, number one. Number two, I wouldn't say the parties are both equally full of crap. I'd have a hard time equating Republican positions with Democratic positions, and yet I still believe that Democrats take black voters for granted. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. But I hear your point about Menendez and being ambivalent about it. And the truth is, on this point, we agree. I'm somewhat ambivalent as well. When you've been indicted twice, the first time you survived on a hung jury, you should know better the second time around, and you shouldn't find yourself in this situation. Having said that, I've said repeatedly, and you laid it out nicely, because you know me for 30 years, I believe in fundamental fairness. I believe in due process. I believe in the presumption of innocence. So this one's a tricky one for me. Having said all that, I believe the more Democrats who demand that he resign, and Cory Booker's voice is a big one because he is the junior senator from that state, I believe that Menendez at some point will either see the light or feel the heat and do the right thing. But I digress on that for now. Moving forward, some other issues I want to cover with you. This is going to take us more than a couple of minutes. Let's get started. We'll continue when we come forward. There are reportedly, I'm just reading some new data about this literally just last night. There are some 8,000 to 10,000 people coming across the U.S.-Mexico border each day. The question is whether or not this is going to be a big issue in the 2024 election the way it was the last time around. Trump clearly made it a big issue, talking about the wall, the wall, the wall. This time around, in this sequel we expect between Biden and Trump, will this be a major issue?
It will be, and there ought to be a big sign hung up in front of the immigration issue that says politicians do not touch. Because while I expect politicians and our elected leaders to deal with the border crisis in either party and both parties, both Republicans and Democrats, again, have a habit of demonizing this issue come election time. Let's not forget that Gavin Newsom, a Democrat who wants to be president and is in fact already running a stealth campaign for president, is sending National Guard troops down to the California border. Where did that come from, Gavin? Gavin Newsom, I've been following Gavin Newsom forever. Not once when he was mayor of San Francisco or lieutenant governor did he ever say the word immigration. All of a sudden he's discovered it. So I really deplore the practice of politicians politicizing this issue. Neither the Republicans nor the Democrats seem to have the answer as to what to do to stop this flow of people coming here. And part of it has its roots where I've always said the same thing for 35 years I've been writing about immigration. It's the employers, it's the employers, it's the employers. People who live in Los Angeles can make a middle-class wage but live on upper middle-class standard of living because they hire cheap labor to be their housekeepers and their gardeners and their nannies and their whatever, senior caregivers. And we have been riding the back of this tiger for over 30 years, pretending that there wasn't a cost. But guess what? Look, there is.
I hear your wish that politicians not touch the immigration issue. I got news for you. That ain't how it works, brother. Immigration is a political issue, and more accurately described, it is a political football. Not just an issue, but a football that gets kicked around all the time. But you raise a fundamental issue that I want to probe when we come forward, and that is, if not politicians, then in what ways can we advance meaningful immigration reform in this country? If not politicians, then who, where, how can we get some meaningful movement on this issue of immigration? Again, you're listening to Tavis Smiley. Our guest is Ruben Navarrete Jr. A great deal more to talk about regarding these trending political topics when we come forward.
Hope, agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful they saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Well, time is running out to avoid a government shutdown at the end of the month. The House is expected to vote later today on a package of bills to fund parts of the government. However, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy may be lacking the support needed to move forward. The last 3 government shutdowns combined cost taxpayers nearly $4 billion. Michigan State suspended head football coach African-American Mel Tucker says the university shouldn't be allowed to fire him for cause. Tucker's attorneys released a 25-page document on Monday giving multiple reasons why the school can't fire him for cause. The letter says MSU made its decision without any review of the facts. The response comes after MSU announced last week it intends to fire Tucker unless reasons are presented why it should not. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Trying to clear troubles as you travel Pasadena on that 210 West Sierra Madres, where we do have a wreck in a center lane. You're busy from that 605. Also Pasadena 210 West approaching Lake. There's a collision from earlier. That's onto the right shoulder. Trying to wrap up troubles in Diamond Bar, that 60 East at Grand. A collision onto the right side. We're slow from Fullerton Road. And the City of Industry, your 605 North of Valley Boulevard. A wreck onto the right shoulder. Here's slowness from at least the 60 freeway.
MVP's bonus days are back at Lowe's. Shop Klein Tools and get 5 times the bonus points. Lowe's knows pros. Bonus points calculated before taxes and fees after applicable discounts. If any, valid 9/18 through 9/29, subject to change. DeWalt offer valid through 10/11.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. Want to save big on custom faux wood blinds, shutters, cellular shades, and more? Shop Blindster today and save up to 50% over comparable blinds from brick and mortar stores. Get custom blinds at low prices and free shipping at Blindster.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
I'm a bad man. The Rams played Cincinnati tough last night but lost by 3. Rams coach Sean McVay has a lot of work to do with his offense. The Rams made only 1 of 11 third down conversions and didn't score a touchdown until a minute left in the game. Quarterback Matthew Stafford was sacked 6 times and threw 2 interceptions. An arrest warrant has been issued for Chargers cornerback J.C. Jackson. Police in North Attleboro, Massachusetts said Jackson missed a deadline on Friday to pay a $600 speeding ticket and complete a 4-hour class on reckless driving. Jackson got a ticket in 2021 for driving 100 miles an hour when he was with the New England Patriots. If I was Chargers coach Brandon Staley, I would order Jackson to go back to Massachusetts and take care of both of those obligations before he's allowed to play again. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Are you interested in catching up on all the latest entertainment news, trending topics, and exciting interviews? I got you. Tune in to The Raw Report with Robin Ayers, Monday through Friday, 6 to 7 p.m. I'm your host, Robin Ayers. Join me every weekday with some of the best entertainment contributors in the business as we break down what's going on, who's got next, and what not to miss. Only on The Raw Report with Robin Ayers.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You are now in Big Tobacco's fantasy land. Welcome. It's a healthier world where they want you to believe that vaping makes quitting cigarettes a breeze. Never mind the evidence that vaping leads to using both. And if you're younger, even better. Teens who vape are 3 times likelier to use cigarettes. In Big Tobacco's fantasy land, the deadliest industry is your friend.
Big Tobacco's idea of smoke-free is a dangerous fantasy for us all. See reality at undo.org.
The Chase Ink Business Premier Card is made for people who make things happen, like me. I'm Sam, founder and CEO of Manifest, a product design company that makes everyday products designed smarter. I get 2.5% cash back on purchases of $5,000 or more, plus unlimited 2% cash back on all other purchases, which helps us make more smart ideas into a brilliant reality.
The Ink Business Premier Card. Learn more at chase.com/business premier. Chase for business. Make more of what's yours. Real business owner compensated for their participation. Account subject to credit approval. Restrictions and limitations apply. Cards are issued by JP Morgan Chase Bank and a member FDIC.
For all of us, this generation and the next, there is simply no place in our lives for litter. And yet, it's everywhere we look. And unfortunately, it does belong to all of us. So, let's come together and create a litter-free, clean California, once and for all. Remember to properly dispose of your trash and recycling. Secure truckloads with tarps to keep debris from flying out. Clean out your car when you're at a gas station. Take pride in your community by organizing a cleanup event. Or join a cleanup event near you. Zero litter is the goal. Join us at cleanca.com. That's cleanca.com. Let's do it together. Brought to you by Caltrans. cleanca.com.
Let's get back to more of Tavis Smiley right now.
A lot of breaking news today in this business. Is either feast or famine. Some days there's no news, and other days there's too much news. This is a breaking news today. Ruben Navarrete Jr. The U.S. is accusing Amazon of illegally protecting monopoly in online retail. The Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, and 17 states have sued Amazon today, saying its conduct in its online store and services to merchants is illegally stifling competition. So the government is going after Amazon. The Federal Trade Commission and 17 states going after Amazon for monopolistic behavior. Is Amazon too big?
Amazon may be too big, but it's big because it's successful and because the market decides these things. And if people didn't want to go to Amazon, me included, we wouldn't go to Amazon. If you read carefully what these lawsuits claim, it's basically that Amazon is favoring its own product. If you and I want to go to Amazon and buy a toaster later today, we might buy the Amazon Choice recommended toaster and the produced toaster by Amazon, or we may buy something else. I think really, having been in this position before, people buy good quality products at good prices. And ultimately, the market will decide. I'm going to keep an open mind about this. It may well be that there are basic tenets to a monopoly, and what Amazon is doing qualifies. For instance, if you want to be part of our Prime subscription service, you have to avoid undercutting our prices. I don't know. I mean, you're in the weeds there at that point. But by and large, I think that Apple is successful, Amazon is successful, Coca-Cola is successful because they deliver a good quality product in an efficient way. And the market decides. And if the market doesn't like it, then it won't be successful. It'll die off.
Yep. And here again, you and I disagree. I hate monopolies. I hate them because I think that the persons who most often get squeezed by monopolies are people who look just like you and me. Black and brown people and poor people are the ones who get squeezed by this monopolistic behavior. For my money, Amazon is too big. And to your earlier point about people go to Amazon for great prices, they go to Amazon because it's Amazon. There's nothing else that competes with Amazon. That's why they go to Amazon, and Amazon can afford to have lower prices because they push everybody out. Again, I hate monopolies, and I hope the government is successful at smacking Amazon upside the head in this regard, but I digress on that. Even as all of us use Amazon, that doesn't mean that it shouldn't be fair and that it shouldn't be competitive. So never mind what Ruben or Tavis thinks, the FTC and 17 other states have sued Amazon, so there'll be another major trial coming up in the not-too-distant future, and we will see what that brings. Let me get back to the point we raised earlier. I just wanted to get to that breaking news right quick about Amazon. But we were talking about immigration reform, and you said, politicians, stay away, don't touch immigration. Well, how do you expect we would ever get meaningful immigration reform, which you and I both want?
Well, when I said to clarify that they should stay away from it, I mean they should stop politicizing it.
Right.
In the same way that they politicize an issue like crime. crime is a complicated issue. You get some criminologists together and tell you about why people commit crimes.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't know it from the way that Republicans and Democrats both rush to politicize the crime issue. It was Hillary Clinton, a Democrat, who pushed support for a racist crime bill in 1994 written by Joe Biden by saying that it was going to target super predators.
That's true.
And everybody knew she was talking about young black men.
Mm-hmm.
And then she said, and this is a really disgusting line that Hillary Clinton put out there. She said, these super predators need to be brought to heel.
Mm-hmm.
Basically calling young black men dogs. And what do we give a pass to that because she's a Democrat? Oh, well, it's not a big deal. She misunderstood. So Democrats and Republicans both ought to be careful when they grab onto crime or immigration and use them as these little chew toys, for their own benefit. And it's irresponsible. But on immigration, I think the best hope I have is not from the legislative branch, which has shown itself to be dysfunctional on this.
Right.
And full of liars, Republicans and Democrats, who say one thing and do another, or the executive branch, where you have one president after another sending the National Guard to the border and trying to race each other to deport more people.
Mm-hmm.
2 days ago, Donald Trump promised mass deportations. If I get in, you got to deport people in mass to get rid of all these undocumented immigrants in the country who are coming across the border. Well, great. The libertarians and the ACLU and the liberal Democrats are all outraged. Well, he's a little late to the party because the deporter in chief was Barack Obama, a Democrat, a black man who deported 3 million people. So both political parties have failed. I think the answer comes from the third branch, the judicial branch. This is really up to lawyers and judges who will decide some of these cases, decide who has an asylum claim and who doesn't. And if you don't, you have to go home. But if you do, you get a chance to stay.
Yeah,
it's my only hope. It's the only one left.
Yeah, well, don't hold your breath because if you haven't seen the poll numbers lately, the Supreme Court has we respect them less than Congress, or they're all in the cesspool right now.
Yeah.
Their numbers, trust me, their numbers are not much better than Congress.
Deservedly so.
Yeah,
deservedly so. Yeah, they dug themselves into that hole, unfortunately.
We agree on that one. So don't rely on the courts to address it because again, with this particular court, I think you know what you're gonna get.
Well, then I'm all out of branches. I got no branches.
Exactly.
Left.
You got no branches left. Speaking of, let me do this right quick. Speaking of deportations and immigration, I saw this story. Yesterday, and I want to take your temperature on this. Listen to this headline, everybody. Drug cartels are Mexico's fifth largest employer, with 175,000 people on payroll. They're the fifth largest employer in the nation. I raised that in part because I was mortified by that headline, but also because, again, speaking of whether or not immigration is going to be an issue in this presidential campaign, there'll be all kind of conversation about drugs coming across the border. But what do you make of that headline, Ruben?
Yeah, and as they say in Spanish, deja tu, which means just hold on, pal. You don't know the half of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, 170,000 people on the payroll, I presume, in Mexico. That's not even talking about the other tens of thousands of people on the payroll in the U.S. And that includes many corrupt border patrol agents, border guards, customs officials who are on the take, who turn a blind eye and let stuff come through the border. Okay? So that has long been a pattern of corruption down there. So the cartel is feeding people on both sides of the border. And it's doing that because Americans have an insatiable desire for drugs. We think if we have back pain, if we have knee pain, everything that is our salvation comes out of a bottle. It comes out of a bottle. And it starts when you're taking your kid to the pediatrician for the very first time. And every prescription they give you or they give my parents or give me is a lifetime prescription. They want you to take this stuff for life. And big companies, drug companies, Pfizer, Merck, and others make billions and billions of dollars. Americans are addicted to drugs, and because of that, now we're addicted to opioids, and they're supplying the desire to have opioids. We send guns to the South because Mexicans want guns, and they send drugs to the North because Americans are addicted to drugs.
Yeah, no, but we can't thumb our nose at Mexico because we have a drug problem as well. No question about that. But drug cartels, ranking as the fifth largest employer in the nation, at 175,000 folk on payroll, is fascinating stuff. When we come forward, let me get Ruben's take on the potential government shutdown. We've been discussing this every day. Why? Because every day we're one day closer to the end of this month. And at the moment, it appears that there's going to be a government shutdown. If something doesn't happen, the government's going to shut down, and we'll see who is responsible, who gets held responsible for that. We'll get his temperature on that. And this I really want to get into. There are a number of new polls out. So let me just be clear. This is not just one or two polls. There are a number of polls out that underscore that Joe Biden's support is collapsing with black and brown voters. Hate to scare you, but the polls are suggesting, a multiplicity of them, that Joe Biden's support is starting to slowly collapse with black voters and Latino voters. Say it ain't so. Say it ain't so. You're listening to Ruben Rett Jr. on Tavis Smiley.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Maisha Cairo here for KBLA Talk 1580. We're live in Los Angeles at JP Morgan Chase's Advancing Black Wealth Tour. And I'm speaking to some of the attendees today to see why it was so important for them to be here.
Yeah, this is Lathan and Tyler. Main reason that's very important for me to be here is just to leave a legacy for my kids. Black wealth, generational wealth is what we need in our community, you know. Oh, Chase, someone has to take the lead. They're showing, big business like Chase cares, and they're putting their money where their mouth is at. So it's good to see, big institution like Chase, giving a lifting hand, to the community, and you got to respect that. It makes me want to bank with Chase, and give them another look. If I go to another institution, I actually see what Chase is doing for the community.
That's right, Chase is doing their part to help advance Black wealth. For more money support, tune in every day from 12 to 2 to KBLA Talk 1580's Midday Money Chain, right here. Have you heard about Lendistry? Lendistry is a national Black-led small business lender that is headquartered right here in LA. Once you've started your business, Lendistry provides flexible financing options starting at $50,000 to help you access the affordable capital needed to grow. Whether financing is needed to increase working capital, acquire a business, purchase inventory and equipment, or refinance debt, Lendistry has a solution for you. Lending products range from traditional business term loans and non-revolving lines of credit to SBA 7A loans and commercial real estate financing. Lendistry's pre-application process is simple and does not impact your credit score. Visit lendistry.com/KBLA to learn more and to get started with an application right from the website.
He's rooting for everybody black. Everybody black. More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
Before I get to Joe Biden's support starting to collapse with black and brown voters, Ruben, you bracing yourself for this government shutdown?
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I can live through it. I've been here before. People live in California. I don't live in Maryland or Virginia. I don't live in the district. And I think people in California, they think they have too much government anyway. And when the federal government shuts down, we hardly notice.
You're being cavalier about this. Government shuts down, a lot of fellow citizens are hurt. So stop being so snarky and tell me how you really feel about the impact of a government shutdown on the American people and who's going to be held responsible for it, Republicans or Democrats. You're so snarky, man.
Well, I know, so snarky. As a snarky journalist, alert the media. Where did that come from? So the last part of it is what you said, who will get the blame. That's really why people care. If they're honest, the reason the liberal media cares about this issue is because they can hang this on Kevin McCarthy and the Republicans, justifiably so.
Mm-hmm.
Justifiably so. But it's really a horse race kind of analysis that says we're less concerned about whether or not the shutdown is going to hurt people or to be justified. We just want to know who's going to catch the blame. So the value of the shutdown is that you can hang it on Republicans. I go back to what I said before. You and I work in the media. You and I have been fired and let go, laid off, shown the door a number of times.
Mm-hmm.
15 times in my case, 15 times in 35 years. I don't remember my cousins who are government workers calling and helping me out and caring a whole lot about, oh, poor Ruben lost his job again, right? But these people who have a government pension, a government guaranteed salary, right? They want me to feel bad for them. I'm over here hugging onto my 401k when they got a pension, and I'm supposed to feel bad for them. Brother, where were you when I got laid off 15 times? Where were you?
Yeah. All right, that's funny. I can see that. That party is funny.
Did you get a call? Did you get a gift basket the last time you were let go? Did somebody send you some fruit and cheese and wine?
Nope.
Government workers say, Tavis, we feel your pain. That's weird.
No, I can't say that happened to me. Can't say that happened. All right, when we come forward, our remaining moments with Ruben Alred Jr., we'll get to these poll numbers. And it ain't cute. This is not pretty. Joe Biden's numbers are slowly starting to fade with black voters and with brown voters. And it's worth interrogating what's really going on. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Interrogating and unpacking. That's what we do around here. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
What's up, party people? It's your favorite MC's favorite rapper, MC Light here. And we're celebrating 50 years of hip-hop, authentically powered by Cadillac. And we're going to take it way back to where it started. It was only fitting that hip-hop began with teenagers at a back-to-school jam in the rec room of a South Bronx apartment complex by an 18-year-old brother. By the way, I'm also sure he had a Cadillac parked outside. He noticed the energy on the dance floor when he switched between two turntables, extending the beats, repeating the breaks, and never losing the rhythms. And that was the birth of hip-hop. And from that moment, it took off.
For more on how Cadillac is celebrating hip-hop's 50th, visit Cadillac.com/audacity.
Mom's early Alzheimer's diagnosis was hard to take.
And when I left the oven on, we decided together that it was time to see a doctor and make a plan.
Early detection gave us more time to seek out information and support as a family.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together. For more information, visit alz.org/time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. South Central Youth Empowered Through Action is the youth component of the impactful CBO, known as the Community Coalition. South Central Youth Empowered Through Action has chapters at almost every South LA high school. Say Yeah, as they are popularly known, is located at 80th and Vermont, but serves young people all over South LA. Under the COCO umbrella, they train youth organizers, help underserved scholars prepare for college, and work with students to help them gain admission to top universities. South Central Youth Empowered Through Action fosters teen activism, where young people have led campaigns moving tens of millions of dollars to South LA schools and forcing officials to make AP classes available to students in under-resourced institutions. SCES scholars have taken part in the March on Washington, been published in major news outlets, and been elected to city council. Long before she was mayor, Karen Bass started the program when she founded the Community Coalition. To donate, volunteer, or enroll a student in South Central Youth Empowered Through Action, please visit cocsouthla.org. cocsouthla.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
More honesty than you can handle. More empowerment than you can imagine. You're tuned in to Tavis Smiley.
I don't believe that polls, Ruben, are the end-all, be-all, and I don't believe they ought to be given too much stock. On the other hand, I don't believe you can ignore them either, particularly when there is an increasing number of polls that are showing the same kinds of trends. And that's what we're seeing now vis-a-vis this growing dissatisfaction with the prospect of Joe Biden running for a second term among black voters. An NBC News poll recently found that the president's job approval rating had slipped from 80% in 2021 to 63% right about now among black voters. 80% in 2021, now 63% of black folk approve of Joe Biden. Biden's Latino support has fallen, and Trump seems to have increased his standing from 2020, earning now close to 40% of the Latino vote despite his record of bashing Latinos and immigrants. Can you make sense of any of these numbers?
I'm tempted to say the parties have gone mad, both Republicans and Democrats. Nobody's doing anything right, making sense. I think a lot of it for Joe Biden obviously goes back to his age. One of the things I'm doing lately now is a new Substack newsletter that I launched, Never at the Nation. And I'm going to be talking about age in the new issue because there's this mix that we have, this mixed feelings about age. We want people to be old enough to be experienced, to lead. We look at people like Vivek Ramaswamy and we say, oh, he's too young at 35. He's untested. He's not ready to be president. But we look at somebody like Joe Biden, Mitch McConnell, Dianne Feinstein, and we say they're just too old. They need to step aside, right? Even Donald Trump, who sometimes gets a pass on this because he seems to have some lucidity in his thoughts. Was it last week where he talked about how Joe Biden was going to get us into World War II? And how Donald Trump said that he recalled fondly how he had run against and beaten Barack Obama in 2016 as opposed to Hillary Clinton. They're all going crazy, okay? There's senility is on the rise in both political parties. And we are very polite about it. We need to stop being polite about it. Voters, and black voters in particular, are saying, along with Latino voters, Joe Biden should not run for re-election, and if he does run for re-election, we reserve the right to stay home. I think the relationship between black voters and Joe Biden has always been transactional, okay? They haven't forgotten that this is a guy who pushed through the racist crime bill, who has said some racist things in the past, and ultimately they don't have the love that they had for, say, Bill Clinton. The connection between black voters and Bill Clinton was magical. That's not the same thing as that you have between black voters and Joe Biden. The second one is much more transactional and less emotional.
Yeah, with all due respect to Bill Clinton, who was my friend, that relationship got a little less magical the longer he stayed the longer he stayed in office. When he passed that welfare bill, when he passed that racist crime bill, that relationship got more and more tense. But I think you're right that black folk have a long memory.
And also when he attacked Barack Obama, when he, in defending his wife, he went after Barack Obama, and I think in very racist terms back in 2008.
Yeah, that got ugly. It got ugly to be sure. Joe Biden, I think you are right about the fact that black folk have a long memory about Joe Biden. There's some things in his past that aren't so kind, but I'm not even sure it's about the past as much as it is about the present. And when I say the present, I mean that he has not been able to get through any meaningful voting rights legislation reform. He's not been able to get through any the George Floyd policing bill or the bill that bears the name of John Lewis. So there are a number of things that matter to black voters that this administration, for all their symbolic gestures, the black vice president, the black Supreme Court justice, the black woman Michelle Cook on the Fed, for all these great appointments, for all the symbolism, for the Juneteenth holiday, for all the symbolism that Joe Biden has put forward, which is a beautiful thing. Don't get me wrong, symbolism matters, but substance matters more. And when you don't get past a key legislation that matters to black people, you see these numbers start to slip. Now, having said that, he still holds a 76% lead with black voters to a 14% take for Donald Trump. So he's still out front. But these numbers are going to be tight. These numbers are going to matter, and they're going to make a difference. So Joe Biden better figure something out and stop this slide in all of these polls that he apparently is experiencing with African-American and Latino voters. I'm out of time. I wish I had more time to probe with Ruben today. We'll do it next time. More time to probe why Donald Trump is rising with Latino voters, never mind his bashing of them all the time. That I don't get. So somebody is stuck on stupid, Ruben, and it ain't black voters. I'll leave that for now. We'll come back to that the next time. But let me congratulate you on your new Substack piece. I saw it this week, and look forward to signing up for that. So Ruben just writing all over the place. Ruben, good to have you on. We'll do it again somewhere down the road, my friend. Take care.
Love you, my brother. Good being with you. Thanks.
Love you back. Thanks for coming on. Hour 2 of Tavis Smiley. We'll talk to Kevin Powell about America and hip-hop changing, but not for the better. controversial piece he wrote for Politico. We'll talk about it when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Well, time is running